Welcome to Krome Cast. Check it out. I'm Sam Major, Commercial Director for Krome Technologies, and I'm joined once again by Ben Randall, Technical Director.
Hi there, Sam. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So this is the third part of our trilogy around VMware and the migration from. So before we jump into it, do you want to give us the three things we're going to cover today, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of it?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, Broadcom have created a disruption with VMware and so on. So that has driven users of VMware to look at alternatives. So we'll look at those options. We'll discuss that. Then of those options, you're looking at whether you move to another platform on-prem or you move to the cloud. And then we've also got a demonstration. This time it's going to be a demonstration migrated to the cloud. And then we can finally we go over like the considerations, little bits and pieces, gotchas in there around that.
Perfect. So for those that maybe haven't watched the other two episodes, which you could, and they'll be available somewhere up there,
somewhere overhead,
hopefully. We've rehashed this loads, but let's just very quickly go through it. Broadcom have acquired VMware, and we all thought, well, how's that going to go? And we sat there and we patiently waited to see how that would pan out, cynically thinking it might be a problem, and lo and behold, it is a bit of a problem if you don't want to pay the ransom.
Yeah, exactly. They've expressed their interest only in the very largest customers. The renewal price has gone up through the roof. There's no perpetual licensing now, so it's forcing people to move. Either pay a great deal of money for their existing VMware estate, or look at alternatives. Yeah. So as part of that, really, in our demos we've gone over migrating to Hyper-V as sort of more or less the next best option. And we looked at using System Center Virtual Machine Manager to migrate that in the first part. Then, second time round, SCVMM is actually quite a complicated and expensive tool. There's quite a lot to that for the sake of a single migration. That might be overkill. Yes. And also, being a VMware user, it's quite likely using Veeam to back up. So we've actually in our second video went over using Veeam to restore into Hyper-V. Yeah. And then following on from that, it's possible that there might be the final straw. We go, you know what, I'm going to go to the cloud. I just want to lift and shift my existing VMs, put them into the cloud, and that's what we're going to cover here. So
it's worth covering off. So we are biased, so we're a Microsoft CSP. We are big fans of Azure, but what we're talking about here, and if you are a VMware Veeam user, what we're going to show in the demo could be done whether you're replatforming into Azure or AWS or G-Cloud or.
Absolutely, yeah. Those are options definitely within Veeam. It's already an option in there, and you'll see that in the demo when we go through. You can see the menu option is there.
As also, we should point out that this is not an either or. So you might be planning some transformation, and that could be actually you've looked at some of the things you're running on VMware that for whatever reason, and there'll be examples of this in every business, that this particular thing should remain on-premise. We want to keep that, but actually those services make absolute sense to push into, say, Azure or whatever the cloud service might be. So the way we're doing this now is you could do either, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a server by server restore, so you can take your pick.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's jump into the demo, and then you and I can break that apart a bit more at the end. Perfect. Sure. Let's go.
So here we are again in the Krome test lab. As you can see, we've got our VMware environment and Veeam Backup and Replication. And this time we're going to be trying to migrate a couple of machines, a couple of VMs from VMware into Microsoft Azure. Now, as you can see, I've got Server 2008, 2012, 2019, 2022, but we'll go opposite ends of the spectrum. We'll go for the old 2008 and the new 2022 machine for the sake of time. The process is identical for all of them. As you can see, there's our 2022 machine, our 2008 machine, and our Azure environment. So we've got a test lab with a Bastion host and network storage account, so on. So first step, as always, is to remove the VMware tools. So we'll launch into that. Let's go to Control Panel, uninstall, VMware Tools. Yes, and 2022, do the same. Let's go back to our 2008 box, nearly done. There we go, so we're not going to restart, so just click No here. F5 on that, so that's gone. So now we'll shut down this machine. Migration, okay. Shutting down, go to 2020, so the same things, we won't restart. Just F5, yeah, it's gone. Shut down. So that's shut. This one's gone. Go back to here. We should see that both those machines are stopped in a second. Yeah, so there you go. They're both powered off. So we go over to Veeam Backup and Replication. Select our 2022 job and our 2008. We'll start those backups. So we've got the very latest backup, so we've got it backed up with the tools removed and so on. So that will be the version that we restore into Azure. So these take a couple of minutes to back up. So I'll quickly pause the recording now. Now I can see that our backups have nearly finished. As soon as the first one of these completes, we'll launch into the restore process. There we go. I think that means that Server 2022 is finished now. So to restore, we go over to Backups and then Disk. And we can see that we've got our backup jobs here. You can expand them so on. So I expand out Server 2022. Right click on that and click Restore into Microsoft Azure. Select that. So this is our latest snapshot. You can actually pick the restore points, but we don't need to do that here. We'll just go with the latest. Next. Here's our Azure subscription and the location, UK South. Let's click Next. Okay, so there's our machine source and destination names. Now, Windows-2022 is a banned phrase for us to create a new banned name rather for a VM to create in Azure. So we'll just truncate that to Win2022. Click OK. And next. Now we select the VM size. Now you have to pick carefully here to make sure you've got it matches the correct number of cores and matches the spec of the OS that you've got. We're on a modern OS, so there shouldn't be a serious problem there, but I'm going to go with the dual core machine. So just for the sake of ease, I'm going to select a B2S. It's 2 cores, 4 gig of RAM. That should be fine. In fact, for both these machines, I know this will start. 2008 is more fussy. So anyway, go with that. The resource group, we don't want to create a new resource group, so we will select the existing one. There's Azure Test Lab. Click OK. Next. Now for the network, we'll just select the Krome Test Lab network. That's all good. And security group, we'll go with there, network security group. So click Next on that. We're not going to bother scanning this machine. We know it's okay. We won't bother putting a description in as to why we're doing this, but here's our summary of what we're restoring to, and we'll leave the box ticked to power on after restoring. So click Finish, and the job will start. Now, we should see that restore job starting. That's processing. We should see it starting to restore the disk shortly. There we go. So it's restoring that disk, we should see within Azure, if we click refresh, no, not yet. While that's getting started, this will take a little while, a few minutes, this task, so I'll just close this window and let's start off the restore of 2008. So again, Microsoft Azure, it's that machine, same subscription and location. And again, the virtual machine name, we have to remove the Windows bit. That's it, Win 2008. We will select the same spec machine as we selected earlier. There's a lot to choose from. So B2S. Next, resource group. Again, we'll select the one we've already got. And the network, just the same. And the security group. Next, we won't bother scanning. We'll give you a reason. There's our summary. And we'll power on after restore. So, again, we should see this job starting. And that started to restore the disk. I'm going to close this and go to the 2022 job, which we started earlier. And you can see that's actually restoring the disk now. So if I swing over to Azure, hit refresh, you can actually see the two disks, the 2008 disk and the 2022 disk being restored. Now, the speed at which this restores obviously depends upon the size of the machine that you're restoring and the bandwidth you've got available. In my experience of restoring these small test machines in our not terribly quick network connection, it probably takes 5 or 6 minutes. So I will pause this and come back when this is virtually complete. Right, we can see that the disk itself has now restored. It's taking about 5 minutes, and now it's doing the conversion on that disk. So we probably won't. Oh yeah, we do see the network interface for Server 2008 machine. Let this continue, and then you can see it's now creating the Azure VM. So again, we try and refresh this, see if we get. Yes, we've got the network interface for the Server 2022 machine. Okay, you can see the 2008 virtual machine has been created. While that's still running, it's worth a while to have a go at connecting to the 2008 machine if that job's already completed. So let's just quickly close that. Yes, it's only the 2022 running. So let's have a go at connecting to that. So in here, we'll just try and use the Bastion to connect. See if that lets us in. I'll see the 2022 is completed. Still early days. Try that again in a moment. Oh, there we go. So that's 2008 logging in. Let's try the same trick with the 2022 machine. Yeah, so it's probably early, but we'll give it a go anyway. So let's have a look at the 2022 machine that has actually logged us in. Let's have a look. Host name, Server 2008 or Windows 2008. I'm not going to try and browse the web using Internet Explorer from 2008. I'll spare your pain. Okay, so the 2022 machine is now logging in. So it's looking good. Once that's complete, I'll just verify we've got connectivity and so on. Okay. Just let that finish initializing. Yep, so there's our command prompt. Yep. That's host name. Let's just quickly take a look at the internet, see if we can get somewhere with that. Oh, as usual. All right, so here's our BBC News. Excellent. So that's a working virtual machine migrated from VMware to Microsoft Azure using Veeam Backup and Replication, and we've done that successfully with Server 2008 and Server 2022.
Excellent. Well, Ben, do you want to just, I guess, recap what we saw there?
Yeah, sure. So obviously we had our lab environment running VMware with various VMs in it. I selected a Server 2008 machine because it's old and out of support, and a Server 2022 machine because it's pretty much the latest from Microsoft or the current release. And we used Veeam to restore them into Azure. And as you could see, that was successful. I was able to log into them. Yep. I didn't bother going into the web browser experience in 2008 because it wasn't good. But you know, they successfully completed.
Yep.
As you could see there, I had to select the correct virtual machine to restore into. Certainly, particularly with the 2008 machine, they won't work on some of the newer hardware and so on. So you need to right size that. And obviously, some of those selections can be very expensive, as anybody who uses the cloud knows. You know, if you pick the 96 processor, terabyte of RAM machine, it's going to be expensive.
And it's worth probably just focusing on that just for a second. It is, you know, that's one of the pushbacks has been on cloud, is that it can be quite costly.
Yeah.
And I think if you've not done the due diligence, we've certainly seen customers where to put it bluntly, bills can get out of hand, but actually when you dig into the resources they're consuming, if you just do the right work, using the right sizing it is one thing, using the right services available in Azure for running databases, all this sort of stuff, you can drive down those costs. And the other initiative that we've taken with customers is locking them into reserved instances.
For sure,
So
locking in is a strong term, but
absolutely.
But you're buying in advance and you get a better price than just the pay as you go.
So you move, essentially we could move in on a migrate as a pay as you go, look at what your consumption model looks like. And then, lock-in is probably the wrong. It's a bit, like I said, a bit strong, but it is, like you say, committing to a term with Microsoft. But some of the savings that you see on that can be,
substantial.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at 30% plus sometimes, depending on what you're using. And when you look at the cost of running in cloud, you can push back against that argument. Do you pay a premium? Yes, but you have flexibility and so on. But actually, if you right size and you work out what you're consuming, and you can commit for some term. It's not as painful potentially as it could be.
Yeah, for sure. And in many cases, this kind of migration, I would think, might be a sort of a stopgap while you redevelop and repurpose what are you trying to achieve with your infrastructure. So it's like lifting and shifting servers is one thing, but then actually trying to use the services within the cloud. So you're kind of doing a serverless deployment to have this function, so you don't actually need a VM that's running there. So it may be a more economical way of doing it.
So you're seeing it as kind of that transformation journey. And we talked about the first part of this was it might not all be cloud. So using Veeam here is a good option because some customers may want to. There'll be certain services that it might be for compliance reasons, for instance, that has to remain on premise and others into the cloud. And then actually doing that migration gracefully. And then having the time, so maybe two partners where you kind of, I don't want to say quick and dirty, but you're doing that migration and then stepping back and analysing what do we have, and then what do we commit to moving forward.
Also, we have had clients who use this as a kind of as an option for a DR, so they can actually restore. It can spin stuff up in an emergency. It may not be absolutely the quickest way of doing it, but is again a consideration. You can restore to wherever you want in whatever cloud. Having that ability with your backup software, that's part of what backups are for.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting evolution. You look at DR and all this sort of stuff. Many moons ago, not even that far ago, but we were looking at solutions where you'd have to have, it was all physical, and you'd have production and DR, and you'd invest an enormous amount of money in some tin to sit there.
And a whole data center,
probably never use. Or hope that you never use, because no one wants to have to invoke DR. And obviously much more elegant now, utilising cloud services for things like DR, and you can do that. You could have some space there, or you could quickly build it on the fly if you needed it, which is is a cost-effective way of doing it, depending on what the criticality is around the services you need to stand up.
I mean, all you have to have in place, as we've briefly touched on in the demos, that you do need a subscription ready there. So those don't take very long to set up, but you do need that there.
You do need to be there.
You need a subscription, you'll need a storage account, you need a virtual network for them to connect to, and security rules and so on to allow that traffic to work. But none of that's a very heavy lift to get set up, but they are prerequisites to do the restore.
And that's, I think, it's probably a good point maybe to wrap up on is as we talked about these things before, in any project or initiative you're doing, it's the planning.
Absolutely.
Like you say, the prereqs, make sure your prereqs are there, and if you're going to use this and evoke DR and so on, make sure you've documented it properly. Everyone knows their role. You've got a good run book, and as I say, prereqs are king.
Yes, absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Ben.
Oh, thank you, Sam.
And thank you for joining us on this episode of Krome Cast. Remember, if you'd like us to cover anything in future episodes, leave that in the comment section below. And join us next time on Krome Cast.